In this series that is united into a playlist, I give you guys recommendations on how to do different useful things based on the zodiac signs of the planets and luminaries in your natal chart. For this specific video, however, I wanted to do something that is more fun and even more frivolous than what I usually post. I want to teach you how to annoy the shit out of people based on their Mars sign. If you do not enjoy annoying people from time to time, you can also watch it and maybe reflect on whether you or your loved ones or maybe your colleagues are truly mostly triggered by things that are supposed to provoke their natal Mars. I am Nadia, the astrologer for people who do not believe in astrology but don't let that fact stop them from having fun with it. If this approach resonates with you, then I'm glad to have you here, and I will be even more glad if you press that subscribe button. But back to Mars business. It activates in our natal charts when we are full of adrenaline. In other words, when we're in a hot state. The hot state is when high levels of intense emotions are giving us the sense of urgency, the sense of importance in the sense that we are not chill about it. And maybe also the sense of being attacked by someone or of being able to attack and win. Some examples are when someone, attacks us, hopefully only verbally or passively, or when a person who reminds us of someone who hurt us previously says something infuriating, or when we compete with someone or get into a verbal argument. These are all hot states. And whereas normally we are not terrible at acting strategically, at doing the smart thing, in a hot state, people are known to do things that are not very well aligned with their principles, values, or even self-serving interests. So you wouldn't want to do this to yourself or to any of the people you really care about. But if there is a person in your life who is so smug and so correct and so positive about things that you want to, for a change maybe, get to see them in a slightly different state of mind, here is what you would want to do based on their natal Mars sign. Let's start with Mars in Aries. The important thing to know about Mars in Aries is that it doesn't necessarily belong to a person who are feisty or competitive. This person's idea of self, which is their sun sign, or their habitual way of approaching things, which can be determined by their ascendant or their rising sign, their moon sign, maybe their Mercury, if we're talking about talking, right, can be completely different. They may be very much about cooperation, compassion, or being grounded, whatever. Mars sign does not necessarily show itself under normal circumstances. So a person with a Mars in Aries may actually think about themselves that they are not very quick or not very hungry for achievements or ambitious. But if you let them know that you are disappointed or, surprised with how slow they are, that can make their blood boil. Something like, oh, come on, you could have finished this in half an hour, especially if they were working on this for, 3 hours. This same Mars in Aries person may, on some occasions, say something like, I wouldn't have succeeded in this whatever project without those people who were working with me. And they will say it and they will also mean it. But as soon as you confirm it and say something like, wow, how lucky this person is that they were those helpful, talented people who could do something that he or she couldn't have done on their own. Ooh. Aries is also a pioneering sign, so they love being the only one, or at least the first one. So it would very much trigger this Mars sign if when a person shares something that they have come up with or initiated, you'd remember that, right, just like this, whatever other person X did last year, that was very pioneering of that. Now to the Taurus sign of Mars. Weirdly, a bit like Mars in Aries, Mars in Taurus can also see red when being told that they are not quick enough. And the infuriating here is not the message itself. So Taurus is okay with being slow, but the disrespect to their natural pace. They hate being rushed, and they can then get into an argument where they would claim that if you cared for quality, you wouldn't be pushing for speed that much. So pace that is comfortable for them is one holy cow for Mars and Taurus. The other holy cow being their possessions, their property. If you are casually disrespectful with what they consider their own, it can drive them up the wall. So like when you keep using their mug in the office, or maybe say that the apartment that they own is not the same as the apartment that somebody else owns because they got it from their parents and the other person bought theirs, even if it's true, still red. Or if you sit on their side of the couch that they consider their own. They may tolerate it 1 or 2 times, but not more than that. And they would remember what you did 2 times before. If they don't want to try out something that somebody else suggested, and you would say that, yeah, this like X is a bit rigid when it comes to new things, they would get angry. In general, they hate getting angry. So if you made them angry, they will give you an extra portion of their angry energy because you made them angry. Gemini Mars. A really mean thing to do to a Gemini Mars is to wait until they have an idea they are pumped about, and to say that they should also learn to come up with ideas that they would eventually be able to bring to fruition instead of only getting excited about those ideas. Or if you want to be more passive than aggressive, you can also say this in a positive way. Like, one day you will get an idea that is not just great, but that you would actually want and be able to work on. Mars in Gemini wants to win with words. So they get agitated when you make it obvious that they're not succeeding in this. Again, they share an idea they're excited about. And unless the Mercury is in some really well-structured sign, it's probably going to be all over the place. And you say, yeah, I don't quite get it. Could you maybe explain it, I don't know, more logically convincing? Or they make a joke that requires a playful response and you say, and move to the next order of business. If they deliver their point in an entertaining way, they paint a picture, they tell a story, they try to take the listener with them on a journey, which is actually cool, cut it off gently and ask them to talk about all of this extra stuff later, but for now focus only on the facts and remain very factual. Now to Mars in Cancer. You will not necessarily notice or see it if Mars in Cancer is angry at you, unless you need to interact with them and you notice them pouting or trying to suppress the anger. They will most likely try to hide it and will get even more angry if you point it out that they are clearly angry now. Mars has a shell and they don't want anyone to poke inside their shell. If you want to be more aggressive, you can say that you don't like how passive aggressive they are to you. Like, what are they trying to achieve with this display? To be fair, they're probably actively trying to not display anything, which is why it is especially mean. Mars is a planet of decisiveness, but Cancer needs time to process their feelings. So if you tell them to come on, decide already, it's not that difficult, this is a major irritation for them. Basically, make it clear that their emotions and instincts are inconvenient, and then maybe add something about how it is obvious to you exactly what they feel right now, and maybe also something about how they use those feelings to be manipulative. Now, Mars in Leo. Leo is a terribly vain sign, which can be a strength, but it is also a weakness. And so Mars in Leo is showing its good side when the person feels like they are among the most important and respected people in the room. And if you make it clear that they are not, this Mars starts boiling. Like if they worked on a project with another person and you praise that other person's contribution while barely mentioning that of the Mars in Leo person, well, that is bad. What is worse is if you help them by assigning somebody else to do their job that they usually do, and you say that you're sure this other person would do just fine. Like, don't worry, focus on this other thing you need to do now, or on your recovery if they're sick. I'm sure the replacement will also do it really well. They also like to feel that they are naturally charismatic and talented, and that they are able to produce an impression on others without even trying. So you tell them that they are trying too hard, which implies that they do not look naturally charismatic. Something like, you don't need to be so stressed out about this. Relax a little bit, and this will start working better. Now, Mars in Virgo. How do you know that the Mars in Virgo is angry at you? They will start cleaning or working or exercising. And they may be sensitive, emotional, expressive people in other moods, but they will try very hard to be rational and businesslike if they're angry. So when their Mars is on. So the number one way to poke at the Mars in Virgo is to undermine their contribution. So redo what they already did and casually mention it, saying something like, oh, it wasn't quite right, but I solved the problem. So it took some time, but no worries, it's good now. Or make a remark that says that their approach to doing something is wrong, such as, here we maybe need less precision and perfectionism, or the opposite, like, I can see how you're approaching this as a draft, but let's try to make this look good on the first try. And so a Virgo Mars can belong to any person when they are in a good mood. They can be accurate and punctual, but they can also be carefree and spontaneous. If the later is the case, then this is the classic case of, if they're late, it's nothing, but if someone is late to meet them, they take it personally. And not just tardiness, but any kind of sloppiness, forgetfulness. If they're already a little bit hot, this can send them off the rails. And their kryptonite is bad critique. So criticism that is vague, not helpful, based on someone's personal preference or mood, or when they are being criticized for being too tight and lacking vision. Mars in Libra. This Mars terribly wants to be perceived as fair, constructive, and rational. So when they get angry, they usually start appealing to some idea of fairness that they have, and also trying to be the fair judge in this conflict, which of course is weird because a judge cannot be one of the sides of the conflict. Or they try to appeal to some norms, like, this is allowed, this is not allowed, this is not how it's done. They are deeply offended by rude words, but that's maybe taking it too far. A softer blow would be when you do what you want, when you want, without including them into decision making, or even considering their preferences. And they may even believe that if one needs or wants something, they should let others know. But at the same time, this barbarian inattention to social niceties in favor of impulsive spontaneity can infuriate them. They strive to be objective, again, like a judge. So casually pointing out their subjectivity can also do the trick. Like, of course you feel this way. It's normal for people in your position to also feel this way and to see things like you describe them. But there are also other points of view, and what you're saying right now is only one of them. Or to say something like, you are too involved into it in it right now to really have a bird's eye view of things. You can also point at some other unspoken or spoken behavioral norm that they are not adhering to, and this they may find offensive because in a hot state they have this vision of themselves as polite, correct, worldly, intelligent person who is very well versed in all of the applicable social norms. And now Mars in Scorpio. This is the survivor type of Mars. So since they are made to be able to withstand great adversity, they are not easily provoked unless they have some physical underlying problems, like maybe they are severely underslept or sick or hormonal. In general, though, they have a longer fuse than most, and they're also relatively comfortable with strong feelings. So in a hot state, they are weirdly patient and also like they're planning very far ahead, which is sometimes not constructive. So some issues can be solved here and now and don't require an elaborate cold revenge plan. Speaking or making plans behind their backs may feed their paranoia, but what could also do that is demanding sincerity in the moments when they are trying to measure their input and maybe not reveal too much. Like, oh, this is so hard to have a good talk with you right now, when it's clear that you're not sharing a lot of what's on your mind. And not sharing a lot of what's on their mind is one of the weapons of Mars and Scorpio. So trying to take that away may set off their alarms. Another weapon that they have is the sense of control. They are known to be a little paranoid about their futures, like thinking about different contingency plans for all kinds of bad scenarios, knowing what they would do in each of those situations, as well as knowing what leverage they have, gives them this sense of control. So anyone who tries to take it away from them, like for example with an ultimatum, becomes an enemy. And the final powerful weapon to provoke this Mars is small talk, especially if they have already introduced a deeper subject, but you redirect it back to something pleasant like movies or travel. Now Mars in Sagittarius. To put this Mars into overdrive, it's always best to know what this person's ideals and beliefs are, like what is holy in their life. And then you disrespect that. How do you do that? By trivializing and maybe exoticizing that. Like, this is a good, attractive idea, and I can see why you think that it is attractive, but this is not how the world works. And if you want to get results, then such ideas are not helpful. You could say something like that. Or you may even say something like, right, my aunt went through the same phase as what you have now, and it really took her a few years to get like back to reality. That would really sting. When people point out the biases in the thinking of this Mars, it offends them deeply. Like, you could take any bias, but you can also say something like, you are generalizing here, but they are two different cases. And if you focus too much on this idea that they're the same, then you're missing on critical information. What can also set them off is if you are not just doubting their honesty, but if you're also pointing out that they lied or didn't tell the truth, or if you remember a situation where they were saying one thing while doing the other thing, so where they behaved hypocritically. When they're in a hot state, Mars in Sagittarius, people believe themselves to be honest, honorable, in the right, and they would fight anyone who claims that they're not. Or you can catch them in the moment when they are a bit much and tell them to calm down. Like, I can see why you are excited about this, or I can see why you're angry about this, but let's first calm down and then talk about it without all this drama. And now Mars in Capricorn. This is quite a strong Mars, so maybe think twice before you provoke it. It can be genuinely scary when angry. Possibly has something to do with this mixture of real worldly power that they sometimes possess, and also a certain decisiveness that they also possess often. What can provoke them is when people question their competences and work ethic, like when they are being asked to describe 5 things they did last week. Or better, if you say that you will find someone who will be more qualified to do their job, like not like you're also qualified, but more qualified, so that it's completely professional. So if they hear that you don't consider them professional, even if they're not really a professional, that hurts. Doubling down on the check your privileges card can also call for some cold rage from this Mars. Like, you're very lucky you had such parents who were pushing you towards success and who helped you succeed at school and get into that university and get that degree. Disobeying can also be triggering, like saying something like, we couldn't do it the way you wanted us to do it, so we asked somebody else for help and we did it as per their instructions, so it's okay now. Or referring to their insistence to follow their instructions as some personal quirk. Okay, you want to be the boss here, let's do everything like you say, no need to worry about it. And finally, you can yourself become emotional and unable to act because of those emotions. Like, I'm sorry, I'm so down today, I need to give myself time, I couldn't do it today. Or, oh yes, it's easy for you to say, you're not worried. Now Mars in Aquarius. Now this is a funny Mars, not because it doesn't get angry, but because it hates it when people say it's predictable, but it is very predictable. It's a predictably contrarian Mars. It is suspicious of people expecting it to behave in a certain way because this is how people do things. Mars in Aries is not people, it's an individual, and you cannot just assume that it will do whatever everyone else does. So it can get furious if you say something like, yes, I was expecting this from you. It's normal to expect those things from people in this situation. Anyone who would have assumed your role would have behaved in this way I was expecting. It's just how it's normally done, sets them off. You can even partially agree to their uniqueness. If you frame this as the opposite of how things are usually done, it will still sting. Like, okay, yes, you're special, you're not like other people, and it seems that in this particular thing, I cannot rely on you. But it would also be nice to know where I can rely on you. If there are some areas in which you can act in a reliable manner. Now, this is something that a Mars in Aquarius would try very hard to avoid, and not because they are unstable or unreliable. They can actually be very stable and very reliable. It's more like they really don't like being cornered and manipulated, especially with peer pressure. So a very provoking thing would be to say, oh, come on, can you just this time not be a contrarian and just agree to what we have decided collectively? Or be even more manipulative with like feelings. If we were really important to you, you would have done it. Mars in Pisces. Now, this is another Mars that really doesn't like being overtly angry. And it's not like they don't get angry. It's more like it's kind of loses shape when it gets angry. So it starts drinking or playing computer games or crying or writing poetry or using some other way to escape reality or confrontation. The angrier the person with Mars in Pisces gets, the more attractive the alternative reality is for them. So the way to trigger that is to point to their failings in the real reality. Basically anything they didn't do or are not doing consistently. And of course, in their ideal alternative reality, they would be able to do everything in the best possible way, unlike in this stinky place where other people are making it difficult for them. Another way to startle them is to demand clarity where they don't have any. How exactly is this going to go? Or what problems or pushback do you expect and how do you plan to deal with it? Another point of attack would be to address that their beautiful ideas don't translate very well into meaningful, effective action, and that their ideals do not seem to motivate to actually make a meaningful difference, and not just some like splashing around. And like any other water Mars sign, this one is also protective of the internal emotional space and would react with hostility if people are trying to invade it, even if they do it innocently or seemingly innocently. So we have covered all of the Mars signs. If you're wondering whether there is anything positive you can do based on your Mars sign, well, of course there is. It was just a spontaneous decision on my part to start with this slightly meaner video, which, by the way, if you're also a little bit mean, press the like button. Mean people should be supporting each other. But yes, I will make a more positive Mars video about how to get energized and motivated based on your Mars sign. Until then, I wish you luck pissing people off and see you in the next videos.